So, I've been sitting here for about a month now trying to brainstorm ideas for this Valentine's Day special video because it's a tradition on my channel to do some kind of shipping related video around this time of year. And between my own lack of ideas and my very busy schedule, I thought the best thing to do was to kind of just speak from the heart and give my thoughts on a very broad subject this time around. Now, about 2 years ago, I did a video talking about what I look for in shipping and why I ship and stuff, and it was actually one of my favorite videos I think I've ever done. That was the Valentine's Day special 2 years ago, and I wanted to add to it by speaking even more broadly about romance in general. And the reason why I've actually kind of wanted to do this video for a long time now is because I see a lot of people online and offline even disparage stories for having romance or being romance, and it's very annoying. It's a very juvenile sentiment that I see a lot, where you'll get people be like, I don't like romance, or why do they have to have ship teasing? Why do people care about who ends up with who? Why do people care about dating? Like, people care about this in real life, so of course they're gonna care about it in fiction, which is a reflection of real life. First and foremost, this kind of anti-romantic sentiment, it limits writers. If a writer wants to write a romance, Godspeed. You are not in any position to tell a writer what they can and can't do. And that's where a lot of, like, the juvenile sentiment comes in for me. Like, I get it, not every genre is going to be for everyone. If you don't like westerns, I'm not going to recommend you any westerns. But that doesn't mean that you have the right to say that westerns don't exist or westerns shouldn't exist. Now, I'm seeing this a lot with superheroes now too, where people dislike Marvel or have their grievances against Marvel, or more times than not just have grievances against Marvel being as popular as it is, and instead of, like, rationalizing it or thinking it through logically, they just say all superhero stuff is terrible, or all superhero stuff that is similar to Marvel is terrible, and then they go on to praise actual terrible superhero shit like the Snyder Cut or the Suicide Squad, because it's not Marvel. See, that's what makes it good. No, that's stupid. If you aren't into superheroics, then just don't watch superhero stuff. It's different if you do care about the genre and you've, like, gone out of your way to praise the genre or praise the pulp era stuff that would eventually give rise to superhero comics, and you are discouraged by its current trajectory. That's the boat I'm in, actually. I just don't think like Falcon and the Winter Soldier or WandaVision are quite into bad territory yet. And I haven't seen any Marvel movie since then, so I have nothing to say about Eternals. But going back to romance, like any genre, like any trope, like any character type, you can mess it up or you can do it well. And so hand-waving it as inherently dull or inherently dumb is childish. It's childish. So, the next point I want to make is a really easy one, and it's one that I think we all kind of inherently know. And because we all kind of just inherently know this, no one ever actually says it, because it's something that, for all intents and purposes, shouldn't need to be said. And that's that romance is very important to human existence. We all exist because of romance. We would not be here today if not for two people having romantic feelings for each other. Even if you are in the very, very small portion of the population whose parents didn't love each other for whatever reason, or were born from a terrible incident, or whatever, then just go back a generation. What about your parents? What about their parents? Their grandparents? Within 2 to 3 generations, you will find someone who was born because of a romantic relationship. It's not hard. This is one of the reasons why romance accounts for so much of human artistic endeavors. I haven't seen any statistics on the subject, but just from my frame of reference and what I have read on the subject, I would be willing to bet that anywhere between 75 to 80% of all works of human achievement were done for some sort of romantic endeavor. Whether it's pure romance or the more animal brain primal version of that, wink wink nudge nudge, that's kind of up to the artists. You know, the intent matters. I do believe intent matters. But you know, like a ridiculous proportion of songs, ridiculous proportion of art, ridiculous proportion of movies, all of it either romantic at its core, or even more widespread is the romantic subplot or romantic implication. I've seen arguments made, the anthropological arguments, mind you, that romance, the art of wooing potential mates, is the entire reason that language exists. Again, that's something we won't ever really know for sure, because spoken language predates written language by several thousand, maybe tens and tens of thousands of years. So my third point, I think this is my third point, that I kind of wanted to address is that because stories are written with intent, the binary nature of relationships when it comes to written works. Because when you have a male character and a female character, or it doesn't even have to be male and female anymore, you know, we're in the 21st century now, in current year. When you have two characters and you're kind of setting up a romance, the only possibilities are they are going to be together or they aren't going to be together. And so a lot of romance stories, or at least stories that are focused entirely on romance, tend to be predictable, and people construe predictability for being boring. And so I can understand people being harsh on romance stories for also being predictable, because a lot of them are. But it's not because they have romance, it's because they're just poorly written or poorly thought out, or don't have enough else going on. This is why I actually really like romantic subplots in non-romantic stories, because then the romance can kind of be in the back seat to help flesh out the characters, make things more relatable, make things more realistic, while the actual focus is on all the stuff that makes it cool and awesome. See, shonen battle stories do this a lot. Too much, a lot of times, admittedly. But at the end of the day, My Hero Academia isn't about Deku and Uraraka, it's about Deku becoming the world's #1 hero. Naruto isn't about Naruto and Hinata's relationship, Naruto is about Naruto becoming the Hokage, and what that means, and breaking the cycle of hatred, which is embodied in Sasuke, and yada yada yada. One Piece is a good example of this. There is romance in One Piece. Sanji is a bit of a gash hound. Boa Hancock has it really bad for Luffy. But other than like a couple pervy characters and Boa Hancock being just insane, there's not a lot of romance going on in One Piece, because it's about the adventure. It's about, there's so much more going on in every single chapter of One Piece, and there's over 1,000 of them at this point. And even stories that are very romance-based tend to have other things going on. Quintessential Quintuplets, which is a series I've talked about at length on this channel, and I will continue to do so, no matter how few people watch those videos. It is a rom-com. It is ultimately about Futaro selecting his bride out of these 5 physically identical sisters. But there's a lot more going on than that, because it's also a story about people improving their grades, coming of age, figuring out their identity. It's a family-centered drama about rivalry and how that relates to romance and how it might not always relate to romance, with the Miku-Nino cooking dynamic that gets brought up a lot. There's a lot more going on in Quintuplets than just who wants to date who. And that's what makes it interesting. And all the great romances have this. In my video 2 years ago, I laid a lot of praise at the Shrek trilogy, because Shrek and Fiona's relationship is the thing that is great about those movies, even when nothing else is in the later movies. But it's not just about them. If that was all they cared about, then the sequels wouldn't really exist, or wouldn't need to exist. But it uses that romantic relationship to build the actual plot of those movies, which in Shrek 2 is Shrek meeting her parents and gaining their acceptance. And that's what I think my main takeaway for this video is that romance adds to your story. It never takes away from your story. If you are a writer, adding in romance does not take away from anything else. Taking away romance and making it a completely loveless series does take away. And it takes away one of the most fundamental aspects of being a human. And that's all I really have to say about that. I'm Mediocrity4. Thanks for watching.